All right, guys, good to see you today. If you don't got your guitar handy, go ahead and grab it. Let me get where I can see everybody. Here we go. Okay, cool. All right, so
Don't forget to talk about.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Sarah. No, you're fine. I just can't record.
I know.
Thank you.
I always forget that part.
Why is it echoing?
I don't know.
I'm echoing?
I was echoing.
Okay. It stopped now.
My bad.
You good? You want us to record this?
Yes, please. I just let you
Okay.
know that. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
guitar and Drop D today. We're also going to look at another fun tuning called DADGAD. Has anybody ever heard of that before? DADGAD. It's a weird sounding thing. It's just the name of the strings, D-A-D-G-A-D. But it's a fun tuning that we can use to get a different sound out of your guitar. So somebody speak up and tell me why you think you might want to put your guitar in a different tuning. What would be a good reason for doing that? Anybody? I'm looking at the chat. Any thoughts? So for me, I put my guitar in a different tuning. Normally, I drop it. I lower the pitch because I want a deeper or more full sound. You can get that a lot of times in these lower tunings because you can leave some strings open and let them ring throughout all of the chords that you're playing. Or you can get down to notes that you wouldn't normally be able to play on guitar. So like in Drop D and DADGAD tuning, we're going to tune our low E string all the way down to D. That's a note you don't normally have access to on guitar because that note is normally an E. So it just gives your guitar just this real full, rich sound. The drawback is that it messes up your chords, right? If you start tuning strings to different notes and you start playing chords like normal, then nothing's going to sound right because the notes are in different places. So that's kind of why we need to study this. So the first thing that we're going to do, everybody grabs your guitars. We're going to tune our low E string down to a D. So you can do this with a tuner. In fact, I recommend you do it with a tuner. But if you're kind of going on the fly, you can do this just with your ear. Normally what I do is I pluck my D string and my low E string at the same time, and then I just tune my low E string down until they sound in tune. So if I were to do that now, sometimes I'll go underneath it and then come back up to the note. And that sounds pretty close to me. So go ahead and take a second and get your low E down to a D. I'll kind of play mine if you want to tune to that. And then give me a thumbs up when you feel like you're in tune.
Anybody need help with that?
No? Again, a tuner is usually the best way if you got one on, but I know you're probably using your phone right now to do this. So if you can just use your ear and try and get down to this note, then that'll help. All right, we're getting pretty close. Anna, are you in tune? You think so? Okay, good. Roger, you feel like you're in tune? Okay. Jacqueline, are we getting close? Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here with you guys so that we can see what we're working with. This comes out of the third guitar book. So again, that link that we shared the other day to go download the guitar books, you can go get these so you can view the online lessons or play along with the tracks. One thing that I loved about the third guitar book is that whenever we did all the play along tracks, it's actually a full band rather than just like a guitar strumming. So you go along and you're really playing along with Chris and Josh, me, Adley, Marty Michael, some really great musicians. So it's a lot of fun to do that. But here is the screen. Oh, thank you, Josh, for sharing that. Okay, can everybody see that? We got this up now? Okay. So we're looking at alternate tunings We're also looking at a strange-looking, brooding guitar player there. I don't know who that is. He looks good playing that guitar, though. So there's a little bit of info there, and of course the video link that you could click if you wanted to. But we're going to, here we go. All right. So drop D tuning, which we just did. Your low E string goes down to a D. Now we've got to change our chord forms up a little bit. Cool thing is that if you're playing a D chord, then drop D works great because you just play a regular D and then play all the strings. You don't have to avoid the A string anymore because technically that note is a part of a D chord. We just normally don't want it to be the lowest note in the D chord. So now that we have a D down on the bottom, you can play the whole thing. So try that and see how it sounds on your end. Just give that a strum. I like to sometimes, with this also, lift up my second finger and make this a D2 chord. I just think it has kind of a cool sound to it. Just gives it some color, and you can do some hammer-on stuff, kind of like what Josh was talking about with bar chords the other day. You can do some hammer-on things in here. That's always fun to do with a D chord anyway, but it sounds especially good here when you're in drop D tuning. So that's a lot of fun to do. That's really easy. I should say as well, with the drop D, you should really only do this if you're playing in the key of D. I rarely would use this tuning if I'm not playing in the key of D. There's just not a whole lot of benefit to doing that. So if you're in the key of D, this is a good option for you. All right, next page. All right, we're going to look at some more chord forms now that are going to start to feel a little wacky. So let's go to the E minor 7 first off. This kind of looks like a almost G chord, but not quite. So because we're now in drop D, all of our notes are 2 frets away from where they should have been. So your E, because we've gone down 2 half steps, your E is now 2 frets higher than where it would normally be, which is open. So your first finger on the low E string, that note is now E. That's like your open, what would have been your open E before. And then with your third finger and your fourth finger, you play on the B string and the E string to make this a minor 7. So give that a try now. And also you have to mute your A string. You don't want your A string to ring open in this at all. The way I do that is you start breaking all the rules that you learned as a guitar player and lay your first finger down kind of flat so that it mutes the A string. Finally, we get to do it. And that should sound like this. Give that a try. Everybody getting a good sound out of that? It's not a hard fingering or anything, it's just different.
Anybody having trouble with that, like muting at all?
Nope. Everybody good?
Great.
Very cool. All right. So that's your E minor 7 chord. So let's try this real quick. If we can play 1 bar of D and then switch to the E minor 7 chord, and then back to D. Here we go. Starting on D. Ready, go. One more time. And D. Okay, cool. Listen, that's the sound you don't normally get out of your guitar, that really deep D chord. It just makes me want to keep playing. It just sounds so good and rich and full on the instrument. I don't want to stop. So there you go. I think, Josh, that sounds like the progression to a transmission tune, like All Things New or something like that.
Yeah, it's close.
Similar, right?
Yeah, you could use it in All Things New, and I think that song is in D. So yeah.
Yeah, it might be really useful there. Okay, so going on to our next chord. This is D over F sharp, and this one is kind of one of those ones that can turn your fingers into a pretzel if you're not careful. But we're going to give it a go. So on this one, it looks like a D chord at first, but you have to substitute your second finger for your third finger. So that's step 1. You play the lowest 3 notes of a regular D chord with your first and second finger. Then what you're going to do is take, depending on how big your hands are, either your fourth finger or you can use your third finger to play the fourth fret of the low E string. So give that a go right now. See if you can reach that. I have tiny little hands, so sometimes it helps me to use my fourth finger. Other people with gigantic hands that I wish I had can fit their third finger here. So it's just kind of whatever's comfortable for you. Mute the A string as well. You could play it in the chord, but it sounds really muddy. There's just too much dissonance between these two notes on the low end of the chord. I don't like that sound it doesn't sound very worshipful to me. So I like to mute that with my fourth finger or my third finger. The high E string technically should be muted, but honestly I leave it open a lot of times. It just sounds good to have in there.
Yeah, because that's that D2 sound.
Yep.
Nice
Yeah.
shimmering tone.
There's a lot going on in this chord when you have the third down low and then the two up on top, but it gives it a really neat sound. All right, you guys got that? Anybody's hands burning yet?
Yeah, I definitely use my third finger there. So yeah, if using your pinky, and only because like my pinky is like really weak for like reaching across the fretboard like that.
Yeah.
It's just not something I ever really do. So if you have trouble with the pinky there, try it with the third finger.
Yeah, again, it's just a matter of personal preference there. So,
And Jimmy, I just realized we used the wrong picture there
where are we at?
on that D over F sharp. That picture, is that Marty?
Oh, yeah,
I think that was
sure
Marty
enough.
took that picture. He uses a different
Wow.
fingering. I mean, it's still the right
different
chord.
finger. You're right. We caught an error. So in the second editions that'll come out in 30 years,
There
we
you
can
go.
update that. Okay, so now let's try this. We're going to play one bar of D and then one bar of E minor 7 and then one bar of, or we'll do 2 bars of the D over F sharp. Give you a little time to settle into that. And then back to D. It's kind of a weird sounding progression, but it'll help us learn these fingerings. So here we go. Starting on open D. 1, 2, and ready, play. First finger, second fret, E minor 7, D over F sharp. Oh, I missed it. Back to D. E minor 7, D over F sharp. Okay, good. So those are 3 ways that you can play those chords in Drop D. The last one, now that I've turned the page here, I probably did that a little early, is a G2 chord. There is a way to play kind of a regular G, but we're going to show G2 here to start with. With this one, your third finger goes on the 5th fret of the low E string, first finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and your pinky on the 5th fret of the high E. Again, the lowest note in the chord is G. It's just we have to think up 2 frets from where it would normally be because we've lowered the D string. Sounds like this. Again, I'm muting the A string as well. The A string just gets to do basically nothing for a lot of these chords. Give that a try. Strum on that a little bit. See how that sounds. Everybody getting that to work?
Can you repeat the fingering?
Sorry, say that one more time. The fingering. Yeah. So it's what we've got in the diagram is the 3rd fret on the low E string or low D string, 5th fret, and then your first finger on the B string. I'm sorry, let me say it again. I said that wrong. 3rd finger on the low D string, 5th fret. First finger on the B string, 3rd fret. And then your pinky on the high E string, 5th fret. If if you guys know a G suspended chord in regular tuning, it looks exactly like that, but up 2 frets. All right. So that's the fingering for this. If you wanted to make it a regular D chord and not a 2 chord, there's a couple ways you could do that. You could simply leave off the high E string and mute it. I use that a lot of times. Or you could lay your first finger flat and bar the high E string too. But for some reason in praise and worship, we love 2 chords, so you add that in there and it sounds really, really nice.
Because we're reaching for heaven.
We are, yes.
The tonic isn't enough. We've got to reach one more.
A little higher. Whatever we've got to tell ourselves to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over and look at this progression now on the next page. I know you're on your phones. This might be kind of a little small. Let me see if I can enlarge it some. It might be a little easier to see, hopefully.
Are you guys on your phones?
Anna, you're on a computer? Okay, good. Roger, you on a phone?
I'm on computer.
Okay, good. Well, then you should be able to see a little better now. All right, so we're in 6/8 time. So this is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feel that we had been doing. We're going to start with a D chord. So let's kind of play these chords in order real quick before we actually try the exercise. So everybody play your open D in drop D tuning. Ready, play. Just one good strum. Now switch to the E minor 7. Put your first finger down. Ready, play. All right, now to your D over F sharp. This is the one with your third finger or fourth finger on the low string. Ready, play. Good, and now this is a kind of a cool transition to slide up from the D over F sharp up to G. Just kind of move from here right up to this G chord. So try your G or your G2. Ready, play. Good, and make sure, I can see a couple of you, make sure your pinky is on the high E string up here for this one. To help make that shape work. Good. And then we have an A chord. Cool thing about A is you don't have to do anything different. Just avoid the low E string like normal. But if it's a chord shape that doesn't involve the low E string, then in drop D tuning it's exactly the same. So you just play a regular E. Mute the low E string with your thumb or just avoid it, however you typically do that. And then back to D. All right, let's give this a try together. So open D, 6/8 time. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To G, A. Repeat to D. E minor 7. D over F sharp. G. A. Back to D. Okay. Cool. So that might be a little unfamiliar to you, especially that D over F sharp chord. I'm not going to lie, that one gets me every now and then. Just if you haven't done it in a while, your fingers are not used to doing that kind of shape. But it's something to work on, especially if you know you've got a tune coming up in the key of D and you want to do this, then spend a little time practicing it. You'll get it down, and again, it's just a great sound to use on your guitar. Did everybody kind of wrap their brains around that a little bit? Okay, good. All right. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say you can select these. These are great, like great full chords. But if you'd like to play around with like different voicings of a couple of them, like you do have a couple of options, like you would I think in the key of G, you can kind of rock back and forth between like your top string would be kind of like a hammer-on kind of thing. That some of the you can do that some here as well. So we talked about D to like D2. You just lift up your pinky finger, and then D suspended. You just drop your pinky finger on the 3rd fret, just like you would on a regular D chord. For E minor 7, you can add in. I don't even know what function that F sharp has in E
It's a
minor
2 chord.
7. Yeah. So like sometimes I'll do that because like my pinky is just my middle finger is not being used for this chord. So I'll kind of like plant it on the 2nd fret of the high E string. So I have like something to kind of play around with. Especially because you're holding on that on that chord for 2 measures, so you gotta give it a little bit of interest. For the D over F sharp, I play it like this, like with my 3rd finger. But if you kind of bar your index finger where it is, where you can lift up your middle finger, and so your index finger is covering the 2nd fret of the B string.
Yeah.
You kind of make this like major 7 kind of deal, like a D major 7 over F sharp. It just gives you something else to play around with. So like I'm all about trying to, especially if you're holding a chord for more than a measure. You don't always have to, but I kind of like little embellishes like that will kind of give some variety to your playing as well. I just want to.
No, yeah, that's great. As guitar players, it's always fun to do that. Kind of play around, just, mash your fingers down a little bit and see what happens. You might find something really cool.
Yeah.
So doing those kinds of things it's just fun as a guitar player. I mean, learning from, I wrote a book, but even just to say learning from a book is all right, but nothing beats discovering stuff on your own. So always be looking for, new things to try and be innovative or find things for yourself. So yeah, good, Josh. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so now that you've learned that, let's do something completely different, sort of different. Go down to DADGAD. DADGAD is weird, but it sounds awesome.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, it's really, really cool to do. So here's why we call it DADGAD. If you start on the opposite string from where we would normally start naming them, on your low string, you have D, A, D, G, A, D. So your low 3 strings, D, A, D, or 4 strings, and G, stay normal. But now, or they stay what they already were in drop D. But now we have to drop our B string down to an A, and our high E string down to a D. So if I'm doing this on the fly without a tuner, then I pluck my A string with my thumb, and then pluck my B string with another finger, and just tune down till they sound the same. Somewhere in there. So try and make your B string sound like that. I'll play it a little bit here if you don't have a tuner in front of you. But your B string should now sound like this. Give it a couple more. Okay, now moving on to your high E string, we got to drop it down to D. Since your low string is already on a D, you can just pluck both the outside strings and tune down. Or you can pluck your D string in the middle if it helps to have it a little closer. It should sound the same as one of your other 2 now D strings. So make your high E string sound like that. Okay, if you need to keep tuning, go ahead, but we're going to move ahead. So now you have your guitar sounds completely different than how it would normally sound. If I were to play all the strings open, it sounds kind of cool by itself, right? Very neat. Cool thing about DADGAD, I was talking about just mashing your fingers down earlier. You can just kind of mash your fingers around on the guitar and get cool sounds out of DADGAD. Right, if you want to play like metal music or something like that, that's why they like these drop tunings. It's just one finger. And it sounds awesome. So this is a great key for us, or a great tuning for us to use as guitar players. I put a little tip over here. It says your strings will not be accustomed to these tunings. So occasionally you've got to, you may have to do some retuning if you're playing live, just to get them to hold pitch. So you might have some trouble there. All right, there's 4 shapes that we're going to learn. We're going to learn one that can be used in place of D major or D minor. The reason it works is because there's no third in the chord. If you know a little bit about music theory, the third is what makes it major or minor. That would be an F sharp in the key of D, and there's no F sharp in this chord. It's just octaves of D and A. We're going to learn a D over F sharp. Then we're going to learn a major chord shape that is movable, just like bar chords. So it's one shape that you can use to play all the major chords in this key. And then a minor chord shape that's very similar. It's also movable. So 4 shapes that you need to learn, and you can play most of what you'll need to play in DADGAD. This is not the only way to approach playing in DADGAD. There are a lot of other approaches to it, but this one will get you started and help you get going. All right, check it out. This first D chord, one finger. It's now my favorite chord of all time. So put this on the 2nd fret of your G string, and just play everything wide open. It's a guitar player's dream. Why don't we start learning in DADGAD from the beginning? That sounds cool, doesn't it? I mean, just big. What's that?
I said I'm for it.
Yeah, let's do it. So that's a great sound by itself. All right, now we're going to go to D over F sharp. Take your 3rd finger or your 4th finger, whatever's comfortable for you, and put it back on the 4th fret of the low string. Got that? Go back to D. D over F sharp. The top strings, these what were our B and our E strings, ring open through everything. It's like this drone on the top of it, like you're playing a dulcimer or some kind of instrument like that. It's this really cool sound that is characteristic of these open tunings. All right, so now let's learn our 2 major and minor shapes, and then you know everything you need to know about DADGAD to get started. These are going to be a little wacky though. You probably haven't played shapes like this before, which is fine. So our major shape, we're showing it here on the 5th fret. Put your 2nd finger on the low string, 5th fret, and skip the A string, and on the D string, put your 3rd finger on the 5th fret, and then your 1st finger goes on the 4th fret of the G string. See if you can get that going. And then you leave your high 2 strings open, mute your A string like we've been doing all along. Play on that a little bit once you get it. Make sure you can hear everything. All right, now take the same shape that you're playing right here and move it up 2 frets. So we're going to move it up to the 7th fret. Here we go. Ready? To 7th fret. I love that sound with those open strings ringing. Now take it back to the 5th fret. Sounds great, doesn't it? Now it's resolved down to a D. Remember, that's just a 1st finger on the G string, 2nd fret. 1, 2, ready, and go. Yeah, very cool. Sounds like we're playing a worship song already. Very neat. Okay, is that making sense so far? Are we all good? We'll talk about what these chords actually are here in a second. For now, we're just going to do the shapes. The minor shape is a little different. So if you look at the fret numbers above the minor shape over here, I'll zoom in some. Notice that we're on different frets. So this actually starts you up on the 9th fret. So count up to the 9th fret real quick. It's probably your 4th dot on your guitar. It's the first set of dots that are behind your 12th fret. And you're going to do your 3rd finger on the 9th fret of the low string, skip the A string, then on your D string, play your pinky, 4th finger. And then with your 1st finger, you're not going to play anything in the 8th fret. You're going to go back to the 7th fret, so back to your other dot, and play your 1st finger on the G string. You can finger this a different way as well, to where you use your 2nd finger and your 3rd finger and make it a little more, it's more like what you're doing for the major shape. That's fine. Again, it's whatever is comfortable to you. So see if you can get that sound going. Again, we're on the 9th fret. Jacqueline, I see your screen went dark. You're still with us though. All right. So there's that chord. It kind of sounds weird to drone on, but those high E strings are still open. Let's see if you can go back to the 5th fret with the major shape. 1, 2, ready, go. Again, this is 1st and 3rd finger. I'm sorry, 2nd and 3rd finger on the 5th fret, and your 1st finger on the 4th fret. All right, now let's move this major shape up to the 7th fret. 1, 2, slide it up. Now we're going to go back to this minor shape on the 9th fret. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Sorry. Good. Okay. Very nice. So again, these chords, they have that drone of those 2 high strings up on top, so they just sound really good played together. And there are a couple other places where we can put these as well. Any questions so far? Is anything challenging about these that I might be able to help you with? Nope. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Scroll down. All right, so in Drop D or DADGAD, these are the notes on the low D string. So if you're having to find these chords now that we're doing the movable shape, you kind of need to know where the notes are, because if you need to play an A major and you're using that A major shape, you need to know where A is going to be. For me, in my mind, I just think 2 frets higher than where the notes would normally be. So I know that G is typically here on the 3rd fret. So in my mind, I just scoot it up or scoot it up 2 frets, scoot A up 2 frets here, and that helps me to memorize where those are. Refer back to this. It's kind of your cheat sheet that you can refer back to at any point. All right, let's play a little bit. Some progressions. All right. So I'm starting with a D. This is the one that we learned with just 1 finger. Play that real quick. 1 finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. Right? And then A, which was this major shape on the 5th fret, or I'm sorry, on the 7th fret. Yep, got my my math wrong there that I just told you about. So again, that's 2nd finger on the 7th fret of the low string, 4th string is your 3rd finger on the 7th fret, and then your 1st finger is on the 6th fret of the G string. And then to move this down to G, simply slide the whole thing down 2 frets. and then back to D. All right, hopefully we're keeping up. Let's give that a go. Starting on open D. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, play. 7th fret, A. 5th fret, G. D. 7th fret, A. G. Back to D. All right, cool. If that gave you some trouble, then you can obviously come back and practice this. We're just kind of blazing through it right now to introduce the concepts. Very good. All right, I'm going to scroll down a little here to figure 115. Gosh, we had that many figures in this book. There we go.
Who wrote this thing?
I know. That guy was a total jerk. All right, so this one's a little, there's a little more to this one. We've got some other chords to worry about. We're starting off with a B minor. So if we think before, we knew that B was on the 7th fret of the low string. We have to think 2 frets higher now. So this is the shape that in the exact same place that we were playing our minor shape earlier, where you have your 2nd finger or your 4th finger, I'm sorry, your 3rd finger on the 9th fret of the low E string. Nothing happening on the A string. Put your pinky down on the 9th fret of the D string, and then your 1st finger is on the 7th fret of your G string. So make sure you got that. Great. So there's that. Now we've got to move back to the D over F sharp, which is really cool because you can keep this same shape. All you have to do is lift up your pinky. So just scoot the whole thing back until the finger on the low E string, on the low string, is on the 4th fret. That's a really easy motion to do if you think of it that way. And then we have to go up to our major shape, which is G, on the 5th fret. And remember, we're not going to use the major shape that we learned in Drop D. That one won't work. We have to use this, this major shape that we've learned for DADGAD. There we go. Good. All right, so the first 2 lines are the same. Let's play those chords in order. Start with your B minor. We're just going to strum them once. So this, remember, this is the 9th fret. Here we go. Ready, play. There's your minor chord shape. Let's do it one more time. Let's make sure everybody's ready here. Ready, play. All right, now slide everything back till the low string is on the 4th fret. Lift up your pinky. This is now D over F sharp. Ready, play. All right, now switch to your major shape. Put it on the 5th fret. This is now a G. Ready, play. Great. All right, give your hands a break for just a second. I know these chord shapes are probably unfamiliar. In the previous chapter of this book, obviously we're not going through an order, but we had talked some about some chord substitutions in the key of E, and we talked about this system called the railroad track system, where you basically have 2 fingers that are locked on the D string and the G string at all times, and every chord that they play, those fingers are playing something on those strings. It's a cool chapter that kind of has a similar effect to DADGAD because it has this drone up on the top of it. We have something similar in this where your 1st finger in DADGAD is locked on your G string at all times. So in your D chord, your D over F sharp, in your major shape, and in your minor shapes. If you can just lock your 1st finger to the G string, that's going to help you move around. It's the common denominator in all of these chords. It'll make everything sound really smooth. All right, moving ahead. E minor. Now this one can be kind of confusing to find. It's a little different in that it's this minor shape that we had done for B, But to make it E, we've either got to go really high, which you may not even be able to reach, and put it on the 14th fret of the low E string. But who wants to do that? Let's just take it back. And your first finger now goes away because you're going to play this open. Your third finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the low string, and your 4th finger on the 2nd fret of the low string. Everything else is open. So you're just playing 2 fingers here because you can't do your shape because your first finger has nowhere to go. It's now an open string. Try that. Everybody make sure you get your E minor. Y'all got that? All right, now we're going to A. Can't do our open chords, so we've got to go back up to the 7th fret and do our major shape. That'll be right here. Then back to B minor. These chords we've already gone through. The 9th fret. Down to G on the 5th fret. Up to A. And then back to D. All right, so this exercise has a lot in it, but really, honestly, most of the time that you're playing in the key of D, these are the majority of the chords that you're going to run across. Wouldn't you say, Josh? I mean, most of the time if you're playing in DADGAD.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, it's like what we talked about when we did finger picking, that there's, like, I don't know what the official term is for it, but you could basically make chords for every scale degree. It just walks up the scale.
Diatonic Harmony, I think, is... I might be using it incorrectly, but I think
something like that. So like,
sounds fancy.
So you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So like it just kind of walks up. And DADGAD's great because there's so much drone going on. Mm-hmm. It just helps to fill it out.
It's almost like the pads that we were talking about in the session this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, let's give this exercise a go. If you get lost, it's all right. I'll call out stuff as we go. This is probably something you need to come back and practice on later, but let's give it a try. Let's make sure we're starting in the right place with B minor, 9th fret, with your minor shape. Should look like this. 3rd finger or 2nd finger, depending on how you want to do it, on the low E string, 9th fret. And then your pinky on the D string. 1st finger on the G string, 7th fret. Here we go. We're in 6/8 too, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, ready, go. 5, 6, 1, 2. Now D over F sharp, G. Next line, same thing. B minor, D over F sharp, G. Now down to E minor, this is the open one. A, 7th fret, B minor, G, 5th fret, A, D. Back to the top. Here we go. D over F sharp and G. B minor. D over F sharp. Sorry, G. Open E minor. Up to A. E minor. G. Stay on G. Now A. All right. Was that a challenge?
It gets your fingers, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It will kill your fingers real quick in here. But it's a lot of fun. This is one that you got to practice on and spend some time doing. But you'll love it. I love when I get a chance to play in one of these alternate tunings.
Yeah.
You have to be real careful if you're using these live and the other song that you're playing is not in a key where this works. You got to figure out and plan some kind of transition to be able to tune. I see some guys grab a whole nother guitar. I see other guys who, they'll tell someone else to talk or read a scripture. A keyboard player start the next song when they take a second to retune. You just want to make sure and plan for that as you go. Well, hi, Shelby.
Hey, Jimmy. Sorry I'm late.
Beautiful solo last night.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, it was really nice, Shelby.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Josh, I know we're getting close to time. Let me see here.
Can I offer like a hot take?
Please do.
So I learned DADGAD a little more railroad style than these, and this all comes back to voicings. Like we've kind of talked about this a couple of times, where if you learn how to play the same chord a couple of different ways, it just adds more colors into your palette, like more options, more voicings, more textures that you could do. So I play DADGAD with 2 fingers. Like I only use 2 fingers for DADGAD. So like, D is like this. E minor, I just use 1 finger. So it's just on the low E fret, the low 2nd fret. And then here it's all railroad, where I'm using just my ring finger and my index finger. So like for me, I think of them as like major chords are 2 frets apart, minor chords are 1 fret apart. Oh, I said that backwards. Minor chords are 2 frets apart, major chords are 1 fret apart. So the D over F sharp is the one weird one where it's 2 frets, even though it's a major chord. So D over F sharp is here. I slide it up 1 fret, but I bring in my index finger, so it's 1 fret apart here. That's the G. Same thing up 2 frets. That's the A. My ring finger goes up 2 frets. My index finger goes up 1 fret. So now I'm 2 frets apart, my fingers. That's the minor chord. And then you can go up, same thing, 2 more frets. That becomes like an A over C sharp. And then you could do D like this, or go back down to here. So like it really does kind of walk up the scale. So, and then from here you just go. So so like for me, and the way the chords are written in the book, like it's right as well. I just know like if you don't have your pinky there, it's the open D string that's ringing out, which is it's always in this chord anyway. So it's just a different texture, it's a different color. So it's basically the same chord. I just think of it as a railroad track. Another thing I'll do in an opportunity or an exercise to try to like vary up my chords a little bit. So like if D is here, sometimes I'll also go. I'll start on the 2nd fret of the D string, and I'll slide it up 2 frets. So you have like this kind of chord, and I'll go back to regular D. So it's just 1 finger. And it just kind of gives you just another color to play with. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, Josh, that's great. Again, that's the thing I love about DADGAD is there's so many different ways of doing it. If you need a quick way to remember that, if you didn't write it down, it's just play exactly what's in the book. Just lift up the thing you're playing on the D string with your fingers, and it gives you, again, just another texture to use in your playing. And DADGAD's kind of fun. Again, we're talking about just kind of mashing your fingers down. If you play pretty much any fret where there's a dot on any string, there's maybe 1 note that doesn't work in this key, and you can do really fun things like, I don't know, just some kind of nonsense where you're and it just sounds good.
You guys ever listen to Dashboard Confessional? Anybody know Dashboard Confessional? I'm reaching back a little ways. This is basically how they would play.
Yep.
DADGAD.
Yep, it works. So DADGAD's fun to play around in. Your guitars are already in DADGAD, so now you have something to do for the next hour. Play around with them for a little bit and see what happens. If you go download that book and you go a couple pages in, I'll go back to it. I think we covered pretty much the whole chapter. Then you get to a really, really great tune that I love called Psalm 139. This one, we about had a revival start in our division the first time that we did this one here. And I love the arrangement that was put together for the guitar book. If you play this one in Drop D or DADGAD, it's just a beautiful sound on the guitar. Beautiful melody. Yeah, go check it out. Go check out the play along track of this one. It's a simple tune to play. It's one that your congregation will learn very fast, and it's pretty much just sung scripture straight out of that psalm. So go check this one out. It'll be good for you musically and spiritually, this tune. All right, Josh, I think that's what I've got. Are there any other questions or anything anybody wants to add?
Just play around with this with DADGAD. I mean, you'll know immediately what's not a good chord, but it's easy to kind of get lost in your feels a little bit, like just playing around on DADGAD. It's so moody, but it's so much fun. I love it.
Yep, absolutely.
But it is hard on your fingers because you like I end up just using I use two fingers when I'm in DADGAD, so those two fingers they're screaming at me after a while.
Yeah, I told Josh after the bar chord session the other day I was going to go stick my hand in a freezer. I think I'm going to do the same thing after this one.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, good stuff. Thank you for sticking around. We appreciate y'all being consistent on these things, and I hope they're really helpful for you. Shelby, thanks for observing.
It was
Good
fun
job.
while I was here. Yeah.
Shelby, were you here a long time?
Was I here a long time? I was
Yeah.
here for a fun time. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, you showed up
Alright.
maybe like 10 minutes ago or something. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at work. I'm sorry, guys.
No,
No
it's okay.
worries. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's what I got. Thank you, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Feel free to hop on the morning sessions that we're doing as well. There's some great info being shared in those. So we will see you then.
Tomorrow's a panel of worship leaders, so if you have any questions about anything, come ask questions. 11 o'clock.
Yep, be in the session tomorrow at 11. That's one that, if we had to make something mandatory, that would be the one. So
Yeah.
I
show
will
up to
be
that.
there live this time. Live.
All right,
Yes.
good job. 10 o'clock your time, Shelby.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Yeah, 10 Eastern.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, see you
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Have a
See
good
you
day.
guys.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jimmy. It's good, man.